the draft has passed, and some of the guys are signing already. But there was an article that was put out by a gentleman that I had on not too long ago. His updated top 15 prospects for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Wanted to bring him back on to talk about that. And that is JT Toth, my brother from another mother, not related, at Draft 412JT on Twitter. Read all of the stuff over there at draftnation.com, putting out some podcasts and different stuff as well. JT, how you doing tonight, man?
Good. How you doing, Craig?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. It's always good when we're talking baseball. This time we're gonna be. Last time we talked majors. This time we're gonna be talking a little bit of minor leagues. But you did put out an article updated because you guys had done the 2024 Pittsburgh Pirates minor league guide yourself. Yeah, hold it up there. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
it.
a, a good friend, Anthony Murphy, Nola Jeffy was on there, had Dave Finoli, who you said kind of, wrapped the whole thing together for you guys as the project. But just want to do an update of that. And I mean, obviously, you knew there were going to be some guys that were graduating, Skeens, Jones, Priester, Nicky G, all these guys that had been kind of like, had gotten their time in the majors. They were getting enough time to not be prospects anymore. So I just wanted to know, like, what is your process when you're kind of like looking at the guys that you're going to move into those spots to replace the guys that are graduating?
Well, being being honest, for this article, I actually reached out to Dave Finoli, and got his. Me and him pretty much put our heads together and did this on our own, which it's going to be significantly different once we get the six guys to all get together and give their votes, which we did for our book. The top 50, we had all six guys give their top 50, and then we did a point system. That's how we came up with the 50. But what Dave and Dave did most of the top 15. I just wrote about it. Is the hitting in our organization was just so bad that it was actually hard to sneak a couple even hitters in there. I mean, um, as we go forward in this podcast, it's the pitching. The pitching is very, very good in the Pirates system, but the hitting is really bad. I mean, Nicky G is going to be um he's the man at second base, so he graduated. And let's talk about the graduated guys real quick. Skeens, Jones, I mean, they're all unbelievable. We knew Skeens was going to be, he was our number one prospect, of course. Jones was number 4 coming into the season. Priester only had a third of an inning left before his prospect status was gone, so we knew he was going to be gone this year if he pitching. And we were talking about him a little bit the other night, and he's really starting to show a little bit and make you sort of feel like a Mitch Keller feeling from him, because he's starting to pitch. He's not afraid. Doesn't look like he's afraid to throw the ball. He's that game he came in and I don't know I can't think of who we played. We came in the second inning and threw 6 innings and shut the team down and got the win in that game. I thought he pitched phenomenally. And then we talked about Nicky G. I mean, Nicky G is going to open up some eyes in the organization with what the plans are with like a guy like Tamar Johnson going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned Nicky G. The one thing that I look at with him as well is how well he's come along defensively.
Oh,
Some of the plays that he makes, and just even smart baseball decisions. In the day game the other day, played
mm-hmm.
it perfectly where he kind of baited the runner to get a little bit too far off of third base and was able to throw him out. I mean, as Pirates fans, we are used to seeing, you know, I guess it would be,
Will
yeah,
Craig.
yeah, buffoonery, I guess I would call it maybe out there. But yeah, the one thing with Nicky G, also his hands are so quick. The way that he gets the
Unbelievable.
ball out of his hands, the double plays, the tags that he's making from relays, when somebody's trying to steal. I mean, that's something that I mean, if somebody's going to write an article on something, they need to write an article on. I know his bat has come along this year, but his defense, the range that he has, because everybody was like, oh, well, he's just going to be a second baseman because, he can't play shortstop. Well, with the different shifts and stuff that they're doing now, like the second baseman has to range sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
as much as a shortstop. But, this is
Mhm.
a minor league show here. So we'll go a little bit to that. And you mentioned Tamar, and Tamar has come on in the
Right.
last months here. I mean, since June, he's hitting, over like 300. The OPS is up there. You see the power coming and everything. But outside of Tamar, I mean, 7 out of the 10 guys that you put into this top 10 for right now are pitchers. And 2 of the guys, haven't even stepped on a professional ball field yet. And we know that those higher draft picks are going to go into top 10s and stuff. But it is kind of crazy that you basically have Tamar, you have Charles McAdoo, and other than that, you have some guys that are kind of holding on to their, status that they had before, like, a Sung Che Chang, a Mitch Jeb. But there aren't a lot of guys, like, especially at the upper level, that are performing. I mean, the hitting is just there's not a lot in the system right now.
Nah, Charles McAdoo's been the best hitter from day one, the most consistent hitter throughout the season. Termar, the last month, has really started to hit the ball with power, like you said. He seems to be a slow starter at every level, which we were talking about that the other night as well. We don't know if it's something to do with just the timing kind of thing, or if it's a different hitting instructor getting in them. There's definitely a hitting problem in the organization. You can see it with Henry Davis is the poster child of it. Just guys just don't seem to be hitting the ball in the minor leagues like they should. I mean, we have a lot of good talent. I mean, I thought Brannigan was going to have a great year this year. He's taken a step back. He's still in our 15. Mitch Jeb, I thought would be a 280, 290 hitter. He's not hitting like that yet. It just seems like the hitting is way behind. I mean, one of the guys that didn't make our 15 that was top 10 last year, and he was considered our outfield prospect. Lonnie White looks horrible right now. He's hitting under 200. Little bit of power, but I mean, he's a guy that we were counting on as one of our go-to prospects. But when you turn around and look at the pitchers in the same breath, like I mean, the Bubba Chandlers and the Bubba Chandlers, the Braxton Ashcrofts, and we still have Solometo number 6, and Solometo's actually taking a hit right now. He's got sent to the developmental team, which he's trying to work on his windup. And let's be honest, he has an off the wall windup, arm release. It's almost impossible to be able to do that same motion and the same thing every pitch. So I think he's gonna be a guy, even once he finds it, he's gonna be a guy that walks a lot of players. But yeah, the hitting just hitting's bad. I mean, we were pressing with Chang at 15, but um we wanted to throw a hitter in there, and who knows, the second half of the season might be even worse once we go through everything. I think Tamar Johnson's gonna keep up what he's doing now. But overall, I mean, it's all pitching. And then you got a guy like Connor Griffin is number 5. We don't even know, like you said, he's never even stepped on a field yet. So I mean, we're putting an 18-year-old kid at number 5 that never swung a bat in a major league or professional ball yet. So it'll be interesting at the end of the year when our 50 comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in it because I mean, I just got done watching Altuna's game. Altoona lost, but there's another guy in there, and like Po Yu Chen, who has really turned things around this year. John Drecker put out that he has something like a 2.14 ERA after the month of May, and has really turned things around. I mean, you even talk about a Xander Meath, who it happens to be down in the FCL, but it's another pitcher that's right there.
He's
Uh,
unbelievable. He's basically dominating. I mean, 32 hits, and at the time of my writing, it was 32 hits and 42 and 2/3 innings, and he had a 5-on-1 record. And I mean, he was dominating down there. His fastball can hit triple digits. I mean, he's another one of them guys. I mean, the Pirates definitely, if they're looking to make some moves, they have pitching to move. There's no doubt. I mean, I heard a neat thing today, actually. We had Rob King and John Perotto on today, and we literally do have right now, seven legitimate major league pitchers um, to pick from once Jared Jones comes back, and you got Bailey Falter, you got you got the Gonzalez Perez. I mean, you got seven pitchers. You can only start five, maybe six if they start to try to stretch out these guys like Skeens and that. But with all the minor leaguers, I mean, we even talk about Thomas Harrington. Yet Harrington's another guy that's just another. Their pitching right now is honestly, I'm glad. I'm glad they didn't take a pitcher in the first round. I didn't think they were going to. I still wanted to take still would have liked to take Montgomery out of A&M just for the fact that he's close. He's closer, I should say. I wouldn't say close, but I think he's a guy that could have maybe be end of next year or early the year after could have at least come up and help that outfield out. 'Cause I mean, I'm a big guy. If you read my articles in the past, I've written about 3 articles on just what is going on with our outfield. It's like it's just for a team for a major league team to have this much trouble in the outfield. It's mind boggling to me. I'm used to having at least 2 guys out there that are hitting the ball or fielding the ball. I mean, hoping Sawinski comes back. I'm hoping he's starting to hit the ball a little bit now. I get Michael A. Taylor. He's a great guy you could bring in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning if you're up by a couple of runs. And I love Joshua Palacios as a bench player, but he shouldn't start. If your team's going to make the playoffs, he's a great bench player. I mean, if your bench is Palacios, Triolo, guys like that, and they only have to start maybe like once a week, just to dispel a guy, then I think you're in great shape as a team, honestly. But if Palacios has to play 4 games a week because you just don't really have nothing to throw out there, that's the part the Pirates got to get over. They got to make a couple moves and improve this roster.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a decent amount of what I always say is they have a lot of glove first guys. I mean, Brian Hayes has become one of those guys, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Hopefully, some of that stuff comes back. But then you've got Michael A. Taylor. And I mean, we'll talk about this for a second. I sat out in center field for the game this past Saturday. And I told my son to watch Michael A. Taylor because he takes such a good read and such a good break on
Oh,
every ball that you think he's going to have to dive for it, and he's catching it at his shoulder because he's so quick. He has such a good read on the ball. But yeah, I mean, you look down, within our system, you talk about, Lonnie White Jr. taking a step back. Matthew Frazier, who was, a darling within the system a few years ago, got up to Altoona and struggled there. I mean, is up with Indianapolis now, but really isn't doing much. The
mhm.
Pirates just traded Gilberto Celestino
To the
to the
Cubs.
Cubs. So there's really like you have to go, and even when you go the whole way down to even the lower minors, the guys like a Shaylin Polanco, who we're expecting more from this year, hasn't been performing well. I know that some of these guys, like a guy that you listed on there, like you have Yordani De Los Santos, on your list. We also have a Johnny Severino, both of them in the FCL, both of them, kind of
Mhm.
play those same positions. Well, one of those guys moved to the outfield, but even at that, they are like 4 steps away from the major leagues. There's none of that immediate help. The pitching, like you said, another one like Mike Burrows. A lot of people, had kind of forgotten about him as a prospect because he got injured at the beginning of last year, is just now coming back. Thrown less than 20 innings. He was like Braxton Ashcraft before Braxton Ashcraft,
Mhm.
burst
Yeah.
onto the scene this year, and you have him up at AAA. So I mean, you have Ashcraft, who is dealing with some minor injuries and little hiccups here and there. Burrow is coming back from that, um, and then like you said, you have Harrington and Bubba down at AA. You have Po Yu Chen coming along there, and then Hunter Barco getting called up, another guy
Yeah.
that's on your list.
Patrick Riley. I mean, their pitching is endless. It's endless right now. I mean, I laugh at these people that are like, "Oh, we can't make this move or we can't do." I'm like, there's no reason you can't trade an Ashcraft for a for like in a Taylor Ward deal. If you have to put something together, if you want to get an outfielder, there's no reason we can't make a move like that. We have enough pitching, and I mean, I know Solometo took a step back, and that sort of hurts because he was, I think, considered one of them aces. But I think Thomas Harrington took over for him to the point where Harrington's just ridiculous what he's doing right now. And you already brought up Xander Muth. That kid's gonna be special. I think he really is. And I mean, you can't keep them all though. I mean, if you plan on you have Keller for 5 years, you have hopefully you get Jones signed up. I mean, I'm not gonna say we're gonna get Skeens signed up, but if you somehow get Skeens, that's your 3 starters right there. You have a ton of talent in the minors. You have a couple of lefties like Kennedy and Barco. Teams might bite for them. I mean, this is the season right now that I think Nutting and Cherington got to show to town like this is what, we're this close. I mean, they are that close right now. I mean, I've said it a million times in the last couple of weeks. Nobody wants to play the Pirates in a 3-game series. I mean, you don't want to go against Skeens and then have to turn around against either Jones or Keller. And then the 3rd game, if you split 1-1, you got to go against Jones or Keller in game 3. The Pirates are what we used to always fear when we made it to the playoffs back in the day with like the Giants. Like, we don't want to go against Baumgartner. We don't want to go against Arrieta. Now we have them pitchers, and it's time to get the bats in, because this is the year. I mean, the Cardinals are down. There's not really a dominating team in our division or in the National League.
And with the Brewers, Christian Yelich, just
Yep.
recently getting injured, and he might be out for the entire season. And for some reason, I don't know why this just even popped into my head, as I was thinking about, like, there's times where you do probably need to make those trades to go for it a little bit. I do want to get those guys that have, a little bit more than just being those rentals. You mentioned with a Taylor Ward and having those guys for even more years. But for some reason, I thought of even just baseball trades of like a prospect for a prospect. It's like we are so pitcher heavy, like with guys in AA and in AAA. Is can you trade for a bat that's maybe blocked by another team sitting in AAA? I think of the trade that kind of went under the radar for the longest time was when Jazz Chisholm, who is being brought up in trades now, was traded for Zach Gallen. And it was at the trade deadline, a few years ago. But that ended up working out for both teams in that, one of them needed a bat within their system that was going to come up within like that year. And, another team needed some pitchers. So I feel like that's where, like, some of this stuff has to work out. I'm not really sure where it's going to go. I know that Cherington definitely said that nobody is untouchable. There's no such thing as an untouchable prospect. I mean, obviously the guys that have graduated, there's a possibility that some of them may not even be untouchable. You mentioned Priester. I mean, I could see Priester being, dangled to a team if you think that Luis Ortiz, with what you're seeing from him, is real. So yeah, I mean, you have that overabundance. You're going to have to do something with it, man. But I just can't get over. For the longest time, the Pirates could not develop pitchers, and they could develop hitters. And because you had, like, when McCutchen came up and Marte came up and Polanco, pre-injury, even, Jose Tabata for a little bit. You had these guys, Neil Walker. Like, you could develop hitters, but you couldn't develop more than like 1 or 2 pitchers. And now Pittsburgh is like pitching factory, and it's still a little bit surreal to me. I don't know what changed. I don't know if we can credit Oscar Marine. I always look to Dewey Robinson, who they brought over from the Tampa Bay Rays to be like their, special assistant to the pitching program. I don't know what it is, but it seems like every single pitcher they pick up, and I'm looking at like Levi Sterling, who they just signed and drafted, another young prep arm, and then they go for, a couple other, college guys in Hartle's one of them. From Wake Forest, that I'm just like, I almost expect for them to be good within a couple years, just because what they've done with the pitching in the minors right now and at the major leagues.
I think a lot of that too has to do with, I mean, I don't know how you heard a lot of stuff about Searage and the old days. I mean, even though Searage did change Who was the two pitchers that we signed in a row that were veterans that were really good? Remember, the free agents we signed back to back years.
Well, we signed Liriano and brought him back, and then we signed
J Happ the one year, and then we had the righty too, Volquez.
yeah.
We had like three guys. I mean, it seemed like we were developed like we were taking veterans and giving them new life back then. But the pitch, like you said, the young pitching, like I mean, I heard a lot of stories when Garrett Cole left here that pitch to contact, pitch to contact. When he went to Houston, they were like, no, don't pitch to contact. You throw 99 miles an hour, pitch to Mr. Bats, and he became a whole different. You know, we saw what Garrett Cole became. So I think that philosophy might have changed with the pitching. And to get back to your one point, I think he's right. Nobody's untouchable, but I think if I was looking, I would say Bubba Chandler is the only untouchable prospect that I listed because, as we talked about with Termarr Johnson, if you believe Nick Gonzalez, and I do, I mean he came out of college as one of the best college bats. Um, and we're watching him like you said. I think he's the other thing I like about him. The other day, the day game, he had a blooper over the shortstop's head and got a double. I mean, the kid just comes out of the batter's box. I mean, he almost beats out grounders at second base. He just never stops. He's a hustler. He's the next guy I think you sign. I think he's the real deal. You sign, and if you do sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, whatever they do, like they do with like the Kellers and the Hayeses, I would look to move Termarr Johnson, and I would look to move Termarr Johnson in one of them trades you were talking about. Like, get yourself a team that needs an infielder and get yourself an outfielder. You're right about that. I talked about that early in the year. Like, why don't we move a pitcher for an outfielder for a team? I mean, there's teams out there that are hurting pitching wise, but they have like you said, they might have three real good major league outfielders and two guys on the minors that can't find their way up. He's got to make a deal like that because to me that's the best deal. You're gonna have control of the guy. The money ain't gonna be an issue. I think that's the deal they got to make. I mean, I think you hit that right on the money. I mean, getting a guy like Jazz Chisholm or Taylor Ward or even I know Rooker's name has come up now a couple of times with Oakland, and back in the day I heard JJ Bleday's name a couple of times, but you got to worry about the money issues with that, how many years you got him under control. But like you said, if you trade a Xander Muth to a team that has an outfielder and just make that move, and it's like boom, you got that guy that's an outfielder goes in your top 15 prospects, and now you got him under control. I mean, that's the deal I think he's got to make, and I would do it for like a AAA guy, like you said, it's getting blocked because then they call him up right away or see what the guy's got, but he's got to do something with these prospects. I mean, I think I wrote an article about a month ago, and I said he's like a little kid with baseball cards. Like he just wants to hold on to them, and he's afraid to trade two of them to get something really good. You know, it's like I just have this thing. Like I mean, a lot of these guys aren't his. Most of them now are his, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be real interesting going forward. Like what we're going to do, and I think we're going to start seeing stuff because AJ Puck just got traded tonight. He went to Arizona. So you're starting to see it now. I think usually that's what happens. You have one or two trades trickle, and it's gonna break here. So we got 4 days starting tomorrow till the 30th. So I think AJ Puck is the first sort of big name, and I think it's gonna start to come down now after this.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is, and the one when you're talking about untouchables to me, you mentioned Thomas Harrington. Thomas Harrington to me, uh, I think of pitchers and throwers, and I still think that Bubba is still a little bit of a thrower. It's not that I would
Oh
trade
yeah,
him
I
either.
agree. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? But like Thomas
Yeah.
Harrington, like that kid is a pitcher. Like from the moment he stepped into this organization, he was a pitcher, and he's always been a pitcher. And it's because, I mean, his velocity isn't as high as some of these guys. Bubba, can put it up there to 98, 99 and kind of get away with that kind of stuff. And you got Thomas Harrington, who most of the time sits 92, 94. So he's almost pitching, even though he's right-handed, he's kind of almost pitching like a crafty lefty and can like kind of
Mm-hmm.
hit his spots and stuff. So, I mean, but here's the thing is, even at that, like, you have to, like you said, you can't hold those baseball cards. You can't hold on to those prospects. You can't be, a prospect hugger, and you have to almost be willing to. And I think that a lot of GMs are kind of afraid, to make those trades to, because of what the guy could become. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
but
exactly.
but here's the thing is if Thomas Harrington turns out to be, in somebody's rotation in say like 2 or 3 years and is kicking things off, but you get 1 or 2 years before that of a player that you need at a position you need. I mean, there's a way I feel like that you can kind of win. Both teams can kind of win the trade. It's almost like everybody's trying to win a trade instead of just trying to, I don't know, tie in a trade or just improve your team, man. Like you're saying, our outfield is just it's rough to watch sometimes.
I mean, the only other guy we didn't really mention that maybe you give him a call, and it's different nowadays too, because what you only call up 2 guys, right?
Mhm.
You go from 26 to 28. It's Gorski, because Gorski's hitting for a little bit of power. Not gonna be an average guy, but he might be a guy that you could just see what he's got, the last couple weeks of the season. But I mean, you made some good points. I mean, if you trade a Harrington for a guy that helped you get to the playoffs for a couple years, and Harrington becomes a big time starter, you could sort of like live with that. I mean, I think it's what a lot of Pirate fans, at least I was, like when we made that trade for Archer. The one guy that really upset me was Shane Baz, because I was like, man, he was a top 5 prospect at the time, a number 1 pick, and he was like it looked like he was like a throw in. Like we already gave up Meadows, we already gave up Glassnow. Here's Shane Baz too. I'm like, oh my gosh, and that trade has gotten. I hate to say it's gotten better over the years, but it doesn't look as bad with Austin Meadows. He had the mental problems. He's not even in baseball right now. Baz has battled a lot of arm injuries, and Glasnow's hurt now, but Glasnow's legit. I mean, we definitely, even 1-on-1 we lost that trade, but I agree with you. I mean, I would put Harrington real close to Bubba. I would say they have to make a organizational decision on Nick Gonzalez sooner than later if they really want to, because I don't think Tamar Johnson has. He could be a DH. That's what we were talking about the other night. Could he be a DH? He could be. If he improves his hitting, and you think he could be, but I don't think he offers anything else in the info. He's not going to play third. He's not going to play short. And if you have a team offer you something, even, I mean, I know Luis Roberts sort of like a,
Pie in the sky, like
yeah, but I mean, if something would come out where you trade like a Tamar Johnson and a Burrows, and maybe another lower prospect, and you can get Luis Robert, I'd be happy with that. I honestly would, as long as they know what they're going to do with Nick Gonzalez. I mean, um, Nick Gonzalez to me has been the best surprise. Nick Gonzalez is the reason why the Pirates are over 500 right now. I mean, once he got called up, his RBI production, his clutch hitting. I made a joke the other day in the media, the press box, because there's bases loaded and he popped that, and I'm like, but we were already winning like 5-1 or whatever. And I looked at the guy, I go, if there was 2 outs and the winning run was on third, I go, he hits a single right there. It's just the way he's been all year. It's just like the kid is really impressive, and it's great to see, because it was such a small, was 180 at bats last year that they went on, and
yeah.
you can't do that. It's one thing Pirate fans gotta stop doing. I mean, I'd love to go back and just read some of the posts about Mitch Keller for a couple of years, how people were so down on the kid. But I mean, you gotta be patient. Baseball's a rough sport, man, and some of these guys, especially these minor leaguers. I mean, like I was really high on Lonnie White Jr. last year, and just looks like a whole different player this year. It's just you go from rung to rung. It's a whole different ball game each rung. I mean, so
Yeah, and I mean, and here's the thing: is Tamar could get a heater at some point, but like you said earlier, is it seems to be that like when he comes up to a different level, he will kind of struggle for a little bit because I mean he's a younger hitter, different stuff
mhm.
like that. Well, let's say he comes up to Altoona next year and struggles, and then comes up to Indianapolis and struggles. Then you're looking at possibly. I mean, a lot of people are saying you know, especially, at the beginning of the season, oh, he'll be pushing for a promotion in, 2025, like early 2025. And now I would be like, is he even going to get a promotion, until 2026. So, I mean, you're looking at another couple years. And if he has any other setbacks, maybe he starts on the opening day roster in 2027. And at that point in time, I mean, he still would be a very young player.
23.
That's,
Yeah, he'd only be
yeah,
23.
he'd be 23 years old. So, I mean, to me, it's just like, okay, so what can you get for him that will produce for your team for the next 3 years? And if you can get a player that will help you get to the playoffs and hopefully at least compete within the playoffs, then that's the trade-off. I mean, teams make these types of trades all the time, and don't think twice about it. And for Pirates fans, I feel like we think about like the horrible trades, but then we don't think about, the good trades that were made. Like O'Neal Cruz came in on a trade. Brian Reynolds came in on a trade. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of different stuff that can happen, man.
We got Brian Reynolds for Andrew McCutcheon. Now we have them both. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that tells you how good that worked out. And then, I mean, I think the best move that Cherington's made in the last couple of years has been, and I really do like him. I think he should play more. Is I like Joey Bart. I know Bart had a rough game the other day, but I think I want to see Joey Bart get at bats. And the kid was the second pick of the draft for a reason. We already talked about he went to San Francisco and basically was thrown into the Posey fire. He wasn't Buster Posey, and they had no patience with him. And I'm telling you what, next year it's one of the most exciting things I think going into next season's Endy Rodriguez and Joey Bart being your tandem, and then and not to keep you real long, but Henry Davis, that's another name we haven't mentioned. He's a guy we should. I'd have no problem moving him right now if it was a part of a deal. Like if we trade like a Henry Davis, if we have to trade a Henry Davis, like a Hunter Barco to bring in a guy that you have 2 or 3 years of contract with in the outfield, I would do it. I think Henry Davis is one of them guys that just needs a new. It happens as athletes. You need a new. This needs a new environment, a new place to play. I think Joey Bart needed that. I think when Bart first started here, he was off to a hot start. I mean, he's down in the 240s now, but I mean, I still think the kid looks like he's happy and he's playing baseball. So I think if they can move Davis and a part of a deal, I'd have no problem. It's just the first pick of the draft that we know why they took him. He's the reason why we signed like a Bubba Chandler and all that, because he took under Slough for a first pick. So you can't really blame the Pirates. They didn't take the best player in that draft, but they ended up getting 3 or 4 guys that they wouldn't have got if they had to sign a regular guy. So that's the kind of things you got to look at when you draft. I mean, I think this year the Pirates, I want to see how they sign these 2 guys, Wyatt Sanford and Connor Griffin, because especially Sanford at being number 12. He's number 12 on our list, but being in the second round, you have to pay over Slough for him. You're gonna have to. I mean, the kid can go to college still. Connor Griffin should get signed for right around his slaughter, whatever. But Pirates took some chances though by taking a couple of really young guys like that early in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like you said, we could talk baseball here all day
Oh,
long.
all night.
Uh, but man, whoever doesn't, please go follow JT at draft 412 JT. Also go over to draftnation.com. Read everything they've got going on out there. And for everybody that listens to minor league news and brews, you know what's coming up next. While I was recording with JT, I was drinking a new beer here for me, and it is from Big Truck Farm Brewing. It's a little town. I had to look it up. It's like Pinkerton, Maryland. It's right in between York and Baltimore. But these people are farmers. They grow their own stuff to make their beers. I was drinking their K5 topless blonde, and all of them have like a truck theme to them. They're really cool cans. This is the blonde ale. It comes in around 4.3 ABV. Under the weighted based on batting average scale, I give that one a 375. Knock it up to 425. The next one is their half cab. Hazy Pale Ale. This one coming in around 6.3%. Give that one a 450. Knock it down to 400. And the final one that I cannot find here for some reason, it is their Crew Cab India Pale Ale. That one is at 6.3% as well. Give that one a 425, knock it down to 375. I'm repping the Greensboro Grasshoppers tonight because I will be at First National Bank Field tomorrow with the family to watch the game on our way down to Myrtle Beach. But until next time, guys, let's go Indians. Let's go Curve. Let's go Hoppers. Let's go Bradenton Marauders. And let's go FCL and DSL Pirates.